Yeah, so I'm Austin Cook. I'm the owner of Quality Tending and Signs and the Tinstitute. We also own a horse company, Rock Solid Horsemanship, and we've decided to do this YouTube series kind of walking you through our journey and how we've gotten to where we're at today.
I'm Micaela, Austin's wife. Today we're going to do our first series on how we met and transitioned to working together.
But we met in 2010, and I actually,
Yeah. So we met in 2010. We had seen each other around. It's kind of a small town. I was going to college. Austin already had purchased Quality, and we were actually neighbors. So like we had mutual friends, but then we'd also kind of see each other around town outside of our house. And like one thing that stood out to me about Austin before I even met him in person is he was giving out king size candy bars to trick or treaters.
okay, that was before we actually met.
Right.
Let's just can I keep it real? Okay, so I was hanging out with a buddy. His name's Calvin. He spent the night at my house. Okay, and he, like she said, we were neighbors. So he spent the night at my house, and he's like, "You got to meet this chick I'm dating. We're kind of like on the rocks, though. Like, he was like in trouble with her. Can't remember the story exactly, but he's like, I think I should go over there. I'm not sure if I should go over there, but you should meet her. She's hot, but she's like a good girl at the same time." I was like, "Okay, cool. This sounds interesting." So at some point, he introduced us, and like I said, they were already on the rocks. They ended up breaking up, and then because he introduced me to her, we ended up getting together. And Calvin, he wasn't like a good like best friend or anything. I think that was honestly like one of the first or second times we ever hung out. So then when he introduced us, that's when she's like, "Oh, I know who he is. He lives down the street. He lives in our neighborhood, or knew of me at least." I thought the my first impression was accurate as to what Calvin told me, that you were a good girl, you were smart, you were the leader of your group of friends, and yeah, I can't remember exactly, but I remember thinking, yeah, he's right. She's hot, and she's the leader within her group of friends, and I could tell immediately that all your friends looked up to you.
Yeah. Well, I obviously thought Austin was cute, and the girl that I was living with thought that he liked her, which wasn't the case.
Oh,
But
yeah,
we
yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
both thought he was really cute. He was really fun. I knew he was super confident and like definitely tried to perceive himself as like not being super into me, which obviously attracted me to him even more.
Yeah, that was by design that Allie thought that I was into her.
Did you have any doubts or hesitations when you first met each other?
Oh my gosh, that's funny. I didn't.
Yeah, I was definitely concerned because Austin was the first guy that I dated that hadn't gone to college. I was finishing up college. Everyone that I had dated in the past, would be getting a degree or already had a degree. And so I just really didn't know if I was going to end up with someone that wasn't on the same path that I was.
How did your relationship grow from when you first met to the point where you started thinking about the future together?
I think Austin said he was going to marry me within like the first couple weeks of us hanging out.
And everyone laughed at me at the time. And now look at us. No, but seriously, things progress pretty quick. They usually do when I'm dating someone. But I owned a house at that time, so she started hanging out at my house all the time. Obviously, she was living in like a college situation, living with a bunch of girls. And I was living by myself at the time. Or no, I was still living with Lucas.
Like Lucas, yeah.
He was living at the house? I know he was renting a room.
But he was like in and out type thing.
Yeah.
It was basically your house.
Yeah, I was basically living alone. So she started spending a lot of time at my house. I would joke around, like, when are you just going to officially move in? That type of thing.
Yeah, I was trying to like make it not super serious just because I really didn't want to stay in San Luis Obispo after I graduated. I envisioned myself like going to a big city like San Francisco or LA or something like that after I graduated. So I was kind of trying to pull back on it being super serious really fast because I wasn't really sure if I wanted to stay in the area.
I remember, like, even after a year of us being together, I feel like it was at least a year. On the way back, so we went to San Diego for me to meet her parents for the first time. And on the way back from that trip, she's like still talking about, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm gonna stay in SLO. I'm like, what? I thought we were already getting married for sure. working together came up for the very first time I'll never forget on a camping trip. We were talking about work. So backing up just a second, like when she started spending more time at my house, we started hanging out on a daily basis. Her friends, and it was kind of a joke at the time and still is kind of an ongoing joke, her and her friends thought that it would be a great idea to help me with a Facebook group because their goal was to like blow up the business. So, Facebook page. So did you guys actually do it? I don't know.
Yeah, so I was still finishing up school, and Austin obviously had quality, and our concentration was marketing, so we were working on how we could market his small business, and we were like, oh, we'll make a Facebook page for the business, and that was like new at the time.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously not a bad idea, given that everything revolves around social media now. Now our whole company revolves around social media.
And he didn't really have like an administrative person, so even before we started talking about me quitting my job, like I would sometimes go in on Saturday and like write checks and do some bookkeeping and website updates and things like that.
Yeah.
So what was it about Micaela that made you think that she would be a good partner in business?
Oh. I mean, that list would take us way longer than how long we have today. It's more about what I mean, she was clear. She graduated second in her class at Cal Poly in 3 years. So she had all the credentials. She prided herself on how disciplined she was. I mean, she had all the attributes of someone that was successful. Literally all of them.
And I
So
didn't
it
need
would
a
always be
job.
my dream to have her work for the company. Like from the moment I met her, I was like plotting, okay, yeah, I got to get this girl on my team for life and at work. But it didn't come up until a camping trip, and even then, obviously, we were pretty serious by then. But I can't remember the chronological order of everything. But we were on a camping trip, and we were talking about business. Again, she was already helping out on the side, and she mentioned, which I knew was a big deal. She said I would come work for the company if we did signs or if we did something that would create more revenue, because it was such a small company at the time that it wouldn't be able to afford to pay both of us, given that she was already making like $65,000-$70,000 a year at her job that she had landed. And that was a big deal because she got that job right out of college.
I had been at the company that I was at for 3 years, and I had worked my way up from being an intern to a marketing manager there. It was like a 150-person company, and I was kind of ready to move on from that company in one way or another. And so I thought, well, we could try this, and if it doesn't work, I could easily get a job elsewhere. But it was that camping trip where we thought, well, we could add this whole additional service to the business that I would do, which was the sign side of the business. I would learn graphic design, we could print things, we could make things, and it would build the business and allow us both to have jobs within the business.
Which, by the way, even now seems crazy. Like, I don't know how I did that, and I don't know how she made that decision. Like, convincing you to do something that risky, even at this point, seems like a crazy feat.
So,
Like, literally, I don't know how I
so
did
it was
that.
a difficult decision, or was it pretty easy?
I don't remember. Like, I feel like we just made the decision that day, and then that next week I gave my boss notice, and I think I gave them 30 days, and
I was so
transitioned
excited
everything
that
over.
it was probably impossible for her to, like, take that back. As soon as that came out of her mouth, like, I'd come work, it was casual, like, I'd probably come work for the company if we did signs. It was like, there was no going back. I remember literally leaving the camping site and, like, making a plan how much the equipment would cost. By the way, this is when we first were introduced to Fellers, because I was like, if Fellers carries Muto, then we're going to buy a Muto printer. And we started putting together a plan to buy the equipment. And then that led us to basically taking what's the best way to call it? I had equity in my house with my mom, and she forwarded that money so that we could buy our print equipment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at the time when I quit my job, the business was solely window tinting, and it was Austin and one other person. So I knew that I was leaving a large company to go work with a really small company.
And not even get paid at all. Like, go from getting paid to not getting paid at all. Like, literally completely different than what it's now. Like, it wasn't even a corporation, so I wasn't getting a check.
What ended up being the most challenging part of becoming business partners?
For me, there was never a challenge. I mean, I think for her it was challenging too, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like, she was great at her position that she came from, and then coming into this industry, she didn't know very much at all. And I know, or I would guess that it was difficult for her to, be taking direction from me as her boyfriend at that time, because we were still boyfriend, we weren't married. We didn't get married for years after being in business together.
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me was like more of an ego thing. Like, I was working for this company, I had a lot of people working under me, and I was only like 23 years old, and I was literally right under the marketing director. And then, and this was a tech company, very like sophisticated compared to what I was moving to. So I moved from that, like a somewhat prestigious position for my age, to this tint shop. And I was so bad at it because I literally didn't know anything. I didn't know the difference between a Honda or a Toyota. And, I'm giving quotes. I have no idea what the products are. And so there was definitely a little bit of frustration there and ego there, because I didn't want to just fully submit myself to learning that business and also just listening to everything that Austin had to say. Because he was essentially my boss at the beginning, because I knew nothing about the business, so I couldn't make any decisions for myself.
For me, it was just like a dream come true. So like I said, there was no challenge for me. I was like, it's just a dream come true. Like, I got the smartest person. No one could compete, and that's still true to this day. Like, in this business, in this industry.
I think we had an idea of how it was going to work out, but it didn't really go that way. Like, our initial idea when we started working together and we bought the print equipment is that we were going to like be traveling to events with the print equipment, and we were going to be like going to these events, which sounded really fun. But then once we actually got the print equipment and we realized what was involved, and that you can't go traveling with these super expensive pieces of equipment on bumpy roads and be out in the dirt with a bunch of contaminants, that wasn't the case. So I do think our vision and our roles changed as we actually got into the weeds of things.
Everything has basically stayed the same. It's just gotten bigger.
There was a lot of things about the position that I didn't want to do that I had to do. So like, there was some things that right off the bat I was super comfortable with, like, editing the website or paying the bills and organizing the finances. Like, I was really comfortable doing those things, but I was super uncomfortable with confrontations with customers, or someone that was upset, or explaining them what the expectations were for our workmanship. So there was definitely, or like even installing, like I had to help him install a lot, and I really didn't like that aspect of the business, but it was just what had to get done.
I know a big pain point for Micaela too, or not pain, but frustration thing, was that she was putting so much time and effort into the business. And I always made it clear to her that she was an owner as well, but customers wouldn't treat her as an owner. And customers would say, like, where's Austin? Can I talk to Austin? Because at that point, I had already been in business for probably 4 years. So people came in asking for me and just kind of looked past her and brushed her aside. And like, in reality, she was doing most of the work. And for me too, I liked my position because at that time I liked tinting. And so I was doing what I like, and she was doing what she doesn't like. Again, still sometimes true to this day.
Okay, so looking back, how do you feel about the decision to work together? Do you think it was the right move for both your personal lives and the business?
For me, it's a major win, just like it was on day one.
Yeah, no, I think at the end of the day, everything worked out as planned. I mean, Austin always said that quality, which was the tint shop, was going to be a stepping stone, and he was only going to have it for a couple years, and then we were going to move on to something else. So that part didn't really remain the same, but we did grow a business and grow multiple businesses together. And I mean, I didn't even think about where we are today. Back then, I just knew that we both wanted to be successful in some capacity, and that did work out. I think the dynamic pretty much stayed the same. I don't think there's any such thing as like work-life balance. Our work and personal life is really integrated. It's always been integrated.
I think it stayed the same because even before we started working together, we respected each other. So working together, just respected each other more, if anything. But that's why our relationship has always been successful, because from the day we met, we respected each other for different reasons.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons that, like, at first it was pretty rocky working together. I mean, I don't know if you remember, at one point we made a rule that we couldn't even talk directly to each other, and we had one of our team members communicating things in between us because we wanted to see if something would work, because I guess there was frustration when he would tell me what to do and I didn't want to listen to him. So there were definitely some rocky parts, but I guess we just knew what our end goal was and we knew that we had to make it work. And eventually we got past that, and we barely argue about work to this day.
So what advice would you have for couples who are looking to get into business together?
Oh, great question. So, I mean, I was guilty of this then, I'm guilty of it now, but talking to her like I would any other team member, and not letting the way I would talk to her as a wife or as a girlfriend be the way I talk to her at work is what, I can always use improvement on.
So is that a mistake that you made in the early days?
Absolutely, yeah, because you get so it's the mistake anyone makes when they're working with friends or family. It's like you talk to them like they're a friend or family, and then now you're actually working in that environment as if you guys are friends or family or significant others. And so then it would be, fighting like significant others would, rather than a fight like two professionals would.
I would say if you are thinking about working with your significant other and you are already having issues or problems with your significant other partner on a consistent basis, you probably aren't going to be successful working together. One of the recipes for success for being able to work together is that Austin and I have very different skill sets, but we are very aligned in our values and what's important to us. So when you get down to the roots on things, like, we're really aligned in our goal and our vision, which has made us super successful in working together. And one thing we didn't talk about is, like, when I was working for another company, Austin would hate when I would come home and talk about work and everything that was going on, and then he would have all these issues or things going on at the business, and, like, we just didn't feel like we could really relate to this other life that we were living when we were at work. And so one thing that Austin really wanted from the beginning is for us to always have the same things going on throughout the day, throughout the week, so we didn't have to, like, come home and, like, catch each other up on what was going on at work.
And now I literally can't imagine, because everything we talk about at home is about work. And so just picturing our home life, if we didn't work together, would be so many conversations about these people she's working with and what's going on at my shop. And it would basically, like, we'd be building a relationship because you're getting to know the other person. But now it's like we have such an advantage over, say, a couple that doesn't work together, because everything that we do, our goals are completely aligned because our income is aligned. There's a lot of problems in relationships where one person's making most of the money and then the other person wants to spend the money. Because we make the money, we spend the money together. And so naturally our goals are going to be more aligned as well. But like she said, all of our goals for life, as far as wanting to achieve success, has always been aligned. But everything is just so aligned because we do everything together. We invest together, we earn together, we spend together, and we make business decisions together. I'm personally excited to integrate our life even more so with work. I want to get to a place one day where living our life is work, meaning we don't go to work. Work is our life. And there's days where that happens, and then there's days where we still come to the shop, so to speak. But like on Saturdays and Sundays, we both work all day long, whether she's making sales calls or I'm on coaching calls or I'm giving horseback riding lessons or I'm showing a horse for sale or she's going to a rental property. So on the weekends is what I'm excited for our Monday through Friday to eventually look like.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's just to continually work myself out of positions. So, like when we started, we were doing everything ourselves. You know, I was installing, he was installing, we were both doing customer service, and now we've worked ourselves out of those positions, which has allowed us to grow personally and professionally. So, just keeping on that growth trajectory. And then also now, like, we both know our roles when we're working together. So, we can start any business and we already know what our roles are going to be. So we've started multiple businesses since quality, and like we always know what my role is going to be. We always know what his role is going to be.
I decided to try that because why? Like every time, so yeah, just typical. Every time I tried talking to you, it was like attitude because like you were saying you didn't want to submit and like learn from me.
Yeah, it was almost like for me, it was almost
But
like
I
a
wasn't
little.
good at talking to her either, so it goes both ways. It wasn't like.
Yeah, it was almost like a little bit of like a power struggle, like who's doing what positions. Like at the end of the day, Austin's going to be the last say. That's how it is. I accepted that. And
Back then or just recently? No, I'm genuinely wondering.
but it's just like it's well, first of all, just like Austin's going to be the last say. That's fine. And there's a weight that comes with that too. I understand that. So that's the disadvantage of being last say. There's a lot of weight to that, like I said. And then also that, like, at first I just felt like we were in or I was at least like, felt like I was in competition with you. Who's right about this? Whose opinion is more valuable, etc. And it's like, stop, we're not in competition with each other. I just need to be the best I can be at what I'm doing. And you be the best that you can be at what you're doing. And that works a lot better.
So did the mediation system work?
No.
No.
How did it end?
I mean, this was like, probably a few days.
Well, I think it's like,
Our
okay.
shop was very small at
Yeah.
the time. And
It's like Austin's
you're
right there. Like,
She would hear me tell Dane something and then do the same thing as if I was telling her. It's like, all right, tell her to go out in the parking lot and explain to that guy that da 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 da. And, it's the energy. Energy in the room cannot be hidden.
well, the
So-
other thing too is that like there wasn't that. I mean, we weren't like super successful, so there was a lot of like stress that came along with the struggles of growing a small business, really low cash flow, having to really care about our reputation because we had a good reputation, but we didn't want to ruin that. It was so precious to us, so we couldn't afford any like upset customers. Cash was really tight. Like we didn't really know what we were doing. So there's a lot of like, it's hard to communicate and have a good relationship when it's really high stress.
But everything is still the exact same today. Because here's the thing is I always push us to grow faster and grow more. And I always want more. So I always put us in a position to where it feels like we're not doing that good. Because I want more. So like, also take into consideration that she graduated college in 2010. So this was like that 2009, 2010 is when the recession really started around here in San Luis Obispo because everything hits here a little bit later. So this was like in the middle of the recession. Now with what you said though, we were never afraid that we weren't going to make rent. Like, we never were worried we weren't going to make rent. And back then, we had next to nothing in payroll. Our shop rent was $800. So it was like, we're stressed out, and we're still stressed out to this day because I make us stressed out by pushing for more. And so, probably arguably even more so then, like, I would dream so big and always be so frustrated because we always wanted more. So then it just seemed as if we weren't. It's always seemed like we're not doing well. Where in reality, I can zoom out and say we're still doing well, but I'm still going to push super hard.
So you'd say a little bit of stress is healthy.
Absolutely.
You think, Jonah?
And that was a big point of friction too. Is like Austin is way over here and I'm way over here as far as like, and we've come more to like a middle ground because I used to be like so worried all the time. I was super risk averse. I could not make a quick decision. I had to have all the facts, all the information. And Austin was way over here. He would have an idea and want to do it right then and there. And it's like, I think he's slowed down a little bit and like thought about things a little bit more before taking him to me. And then I've also sped up a lot. Like I can make a lot quicker decisions. I'm willing to take more risks. So I think we've come to more of a middle ground in that regard.
And looking back, it's like, I'm sure it was always in the back of her head. Like I'm working underneath someone that has very little credibility, and it's like I always at that for probably the first 10 years she thought I could easily go work somewhere else and make more money. So like, well, why am I listening to you? Why am I doing this? I mean, literally up until we moved to this shop. Because I just remember one specific confrontation. It was like, why don't I just go work for someone else and make as much money as we're both making together? And I thought, hey, that's not a bad idea. I like the sound of that. I could be a stay-at-home dad.
I mean, and even if you just like the shop was like clean and nice, but like even if you just want to like look at the aesthetics, I mean, I had my own like cubicle, like there was like nice bathrooms, there was a whole kitchen, like all this stuff. And then like, you know, at Quality, like at one point I was working, my desk was a top of a filing cabinet. So it's like, you know, there was a pretty big
Oh my
spread.
gosh. And I still remember like when she told me about when she told her team members at Shopatron that she was leaving to come work for the tint shop. They're like, yeah, good luck with that. Good luck working with your boyfriend.
My boss was like, I've tried to do my own businesses before too, and I'm working here now.
And now that business is out of business, and we're still in business.
So what would you say is the key that made working together functional? Like
Respect.
So many other people.
Respect. 100%. Respecting each other. Like, at the end of the day, even in the worst of our fights, we've always respected each other. That, I mean, it's been earned. So I don't like just saying like, oh, you just respect someone. Like, it has to be earned. But we've both earned each other's respect in a multitude of ways.
I think for me, it was always having one foot out the door. Like whenever things would like go badly, I would be like, oh, well, I could always just go over here and do this. So I always had that in mind. And it would be like similar to being in a marriage with someone, and every time you got in a fight being like, well, I could just get divorced and be with this other person. And so when I like stopped doing that and I was just like, this is what I'm doing, then I think my mindset shifted and everything was better, at least on my end, when I stopped thinking that there was a chance I was going to go do something else.
Most definitely on my end too, when she stopped doing that. But see, for me, I knew there was never any other option. Like, for me, I knew I was always going to work for myself, no matter what, whether she left or not. And for her, yeah, there's always the option of her going to work for someone else because she could do anything.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked for someone?
My last job was Ross downtown.